Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode we're going to be talking about NFL Draft Bust Analytics, specifically another pass rusher guy, another pass rusher in Barkevious Mingo. Great name, ultimately led to a very famous Key and Peele sketch as well, at least influenced it, and he's another guy that kind of like Deion Jordan, kind of like a lot of these different sort of pass rusher guys. Definitely had some athleticism traits going for him. Did not have the production going for him. And, of course, ended up being a top 10, well, a very high pick, which he most likely probably should have not been. So, again, I wanted to do NFL Draft Bust Analytics, at least go over NFL Draft Bust. NFL Draft Busts are typically guys that get drafted in the top 10, top 20, and these are guys that had very clear things in their analytics saying, don't draft this guy top 10. There are definitely guys who become busts, and the analytics said that they're going to be good. And I'm not disputing the fact that NFL analytics is very much in its infancy a little bit, and there's still a lot of stuff to learn about it and refine with it. But there are certain times, certain players, where it is very clear things in terms of their data that say, don't draft this guy top 10. Like there sometimes the analytics speaks louder than words, louder than draft rooms, if you will, louder than scouts isms about the stuff they do, because that's just the way it is. Sometimes analytics speaks louder than everything. And Barkevious Mingo is one of those types of players where analytics spoke a lot louder than whatever scout thought he was going to be elite, But yeah, we're going to go over a bunch of different things. First of all, we're going to go over his production, specifically market share production at the defensive end / 3-4 outside linebacker position. And market share production, for those that aren't very familiar with that, at least when it comes to defensive players, is you're taking an individual defensive statistic and you're dividing it by the team total statistic. So, for example, if a defensive end had 50 solo tackles on a team that had 500 solo tackles, then that defensive end / 3-4 outside linebacker had 10% solo tackle market share. But what you do is you take that number and you compare it to every single defensive end / 3-4 outside linebacker since the 1989 NFL draft class. Specifically, when it comes to my data set, I have over 1,300 plus defensive ends / outside linebackers in my data set. You compare them to all those guys, and you're able to see, okay, how does it compare to how the All-Pro players performed? How does it compare to how the Pro Bowl players performed? And so on and so forth. And then, of course, we're going to look at athleticism data, which is, of course, the explosive lower body strength score, which is the vertical and broad jump measured against mass density, which is weight divided by height. Essentially, how explosive they are for their weight, mass density, if you will. And then we're also going to look at the speed score, which is the 40-yard dash measured against mass density, which is basically how fast they are for their size compared to their peers since the 1999 NFL draft class. And, of course, flexibility score, which is a short shuttle / free cone measured against their mass density as well. So those are all the data points we're going to be looking at. We're going to be, looking at his production out of college. We're going to be looking at his athleticism at the combine, and then also looking at his NFL production, and hopefully kind of dispel some of the stuff about Mingo and reasons why teams and things that people should be looking out for when they evaluate pass rushers in the future. So starting with his production with Mingo, when it comes to his solo tackle market share, he had a 35.09 in terms of solo tackle market share. That does not hit the All-Pro threshold or Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to solo tackle market share since the 1989 NFL draft class in terms of the bottom end threshold for that particular metric. He has a 50.57 sack market share score that doesn't hit All-Pro, let alone Pro Bowl threshold either in terms of his sack market share. His tackle for loss market share is 53.78, which also doesn't hit the threshold for tackle for loss market share at the All-Pro or Pro Bowl level. And what becomes readily apparent when you look at his production is that this is a player who, there has never been a player with this type of production to become a multiple All-Pro, let alone Pro Bowl player with his production marks, with this production profile, this pattern, if you will, in terms of his production. So the question becomes, why would you draft a guy like this, top 10 in the NFL draft, if there's never been someone like him in the history of the NFL, at least in the last almost 30 years, there's never been a guy like this with this type of production profile. Why would you draft that guy in the top 10? It's just nuts. Now, one of the main reasons why he probably was drafted in the top 10 was because of his athleticism. He has a 65.53 explosive lower body strength score, 86.19 speed score, and an 82.78 flexibility score. And if you look at the bottom end thresholds for All-Pro and Pro Bowl, he hits all the athleticism traits of an All-Pro player. Like high-end explosiveness, hits the speed score, hits the flexibility score you're looking for when it comes to All-Pro / Pro Bowl player. But again, if you don't have the production to match the athleticism, then I don't know what we're talking about here. I don't know what are you trying to say? Because consistently, this is just something where you don't take a guy this high when they have this sort of profile. Like it's just nuts to me when you make decisions like this. Because again, there's lots of athleticism guys out there who say that athleticism is the only thing you need to be looking at on top of film, and that's it. You just look at the athleticism, look at the film, and that's it. And that's all you really need to project guys. But that's ridiculous. Every single variable matters in projection. Athleticism matters. Production matters. Character matters. Everything matters. And I think with Mingo, the reason why he's been such a disappointment so far in his early career, and of course, he was this was a top 10 pick who isn't on the team anymore. Actions speak louder than words in this particular case. So I would say that the biggest reason why he is a bust or a mistake, or what we can learn from him, is that you have to have everything line up for a guy. You don't draft a guy in the top 10 of the NFL draft if he has major production issues, because the question becomes, even though this guy has all-pro athleticism, why does a guy who has all-pro athleticism not have the ability to produce like an above-average pass rusher? And not just in terms of sacks and TFL, we're talking solo tackle market share. Solo tackle market share is really indicative of just that player's ability to, be impactful other than just, basically nose for the football, more than anything else. And I just think it's ridiculous that a guy like this, for any stretch of imagination, for why teams would draft a guy like this just basing it on athleticism. Like, the bottom line is, you will definitely hit on guys if you just look at athleticism. There's no way to get around that. But you will also miss on guys if you don't have the athleticism to match their production. And I think Mingo is a very good case of why production metrics matter, why you need to be paying attention to production metrics. And that also brings us to his NFL production, which MSAPER is solo tackle market share score compared to peers, MSSPER is sack market share compared to peers, and MSPDPER is pass deflection market share compared to peers, and TPER, at least the last number here, is total impact percentile. Based on his total impact, Mingo definitely had a okay rookie season in 2013. 76.38 is at least above average compared to every single pass rusher in the NFL. It's not top 10, it's not top 20, it's not even really top 40 in terms of his production, but he at least is in the the 40s to 50s, 60s-ish kind of area in terms of being like a top 40, top 60 type of player compared to peers. But ever since then, his productions just continue to dip. And in 2015, his production was just blah. And then in 2016, of course, he was on the New England Patriots and didn't really do much of anything. Which, of course, I know they probably expect more things from him in the future. But I think the basic things to just, again, when we look back on Mingo, he just continues to be a case where you need to be paying attention to every single variable. Don't just pay attention to production. Don't just pay attention to athleticism. You need to be paying attention to every facet, and I think we mess up big time when we don't pay attention to every single facet, because that is one of the reasons why a guy like Mingo, who was drafted really, really high, failed because you're just not paying attention to the big picture, not paying attention to every single variable. It's not easy to do projections, but at the very least, if I was a GM and I showed you that production and said that there was never been a guy like this to become a really, really productive player with this type of production pattern, you would tell me, yeah, we shouldn't draft this guy this high. So I would say that that's just the biggest thing with Mingo, is that Mingo definitely has some value. I mean, he was a great athlete, so there's definitely some athletic upside stuff to talk and discuss. But if the production doesn't match that, you don't take that guy that high. So those are just the kind of main points when it comes to Mingo in terms of why he failed. Most likely is because he just, based on his production, he just didn't really match the thresholds it needed to match in terms of past special players. So again, my name is James Coburn. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.